Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday Six-Pack.
So 44-42 me. You're posing some ground here. 2 points for our first two picks, one for the third, one for the total, and one more if you sweep all four of those. And shout out to our producer, Matt Mitchell, wanted us to mention that our against the spread record on these six-pack picks, 60%. So hope everyone out there has been making some money tailing the picks, and we'll try to keep it going.
Try to keep it rolling. One losing week. And we're locking these in all at one time. So it's been another good season, but as I always say, it's on to the next week. So let's try to get some winners this week.
Yeah. 8 out of 12 weeks we have been at least 4-2. 4-2 or 5-1. Still haven't got that 6-0 sweep. Only one time did we have a week with more than 3 losses. So I've been fairly consistent. Hope that's good.
With some awful beats too. We've had about 6 or 7 like once a year beats.
It happens.
So the Patriots won, the Texans extra point,
Ravens,
the Ravens against the Cardinals. So yeah, it's always nice when you can still be rolling along. Well, makes those losses easier to swallow. When you're running bad and not picking winners and then having those losses, that's when it's the worst on Sundays. So yeah, let's keep it rolling.
All right, for my first pick and the first overall of the week number 13 Sunday six-pack, going with the Arizona Cardinals plus 5.5 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh, still the luckiest team in football. Check out our luck rankings. They're great, but they kind of point out when teams have been scoring above or below their expected score once you adjust for, opponent field goal luck and all the other kind of lucky random kind of things that happen in games that the team has no control over. Listen, I watched every snap of Pittsburgh all year, of every team, but really closely watched this Pittsburgh team because it was the first game without Matt Canada, first game in 4 years going over 400 yards. It wasn't great.
On over 400 yards the game before Matt Canada got there, and then went over 400 yards the day. You can't make that up. Over 400 yards for the first time the game after he left.
Yeah. And, we've seen this a bunch now where, unfortunately for the pod and, kind of sometimes when you get in front of these coaching changes, you just come out on the wrong side. And that was the case last week. Pittsburgh decided to have a decent offensive showing. It could have been more. Deontay Johnson. I mean, Deontay Johnson just is like. Any thoughts on Deontay Johnson before I get into this pick? Because I feel like I watched this dude. That drop touchdown was soft. Half the time he catches a pass, he's running sideways or backwards. He just kind of is this dude soft or what?
There was a run play where he didn't block at all.
He didn't look for the cover of the fumble. That he walked right away from it.
It's I don't know. There's definitely something. There's definitely something going on there.
Yeah, it's probably mental attitude, whatever. But maybe that touchdown deficit streak, whatever, did something to him. But either way, Kenny Pickett is still 30th of 38 quarterbacks in rating from a clean pocket. Pickett missed a bunch. He just misses a bunch of throws every week, and this is why the Cardinals in this kind of spot are, I think, a perfect kind of team to cover, even if they end up maybe losing by 3. But I think the Cardinals could win this game because Kenny Pickett, it's not really going to matter whether you got pressure or you don't. He just misses throws, whether he's pressured or not. He's actually been running well in terms of turnover luck lately, hasn't really turned it over. So That could happen at any time, given the way he's throwing the football. But on the other side, Kyler Murray, some mobility to get away from Watt and Hayward and those guys. And this is, I just love the spot for both sides from the Pittsburgh perspective. You're coming off a big win in the division. Now you're a home favorite. Mike Tomlin as a favorite by more than a field goal coming off a win, 28-47-1 against the spread, just 37%. And on the other side, Arizona, who we faded last week, and they got blown out, after that first drive, really couldn't get it going. But Dogs coming off a loss of 20 or more points, 120-79-4, 60% since 2017 against the spread. And for whatever reason, and I talked about this last week, Kyler Murray, I don't know if he presses or if it's something, more to do with just the market and the models or what, but always seem to overrate the Cardinals at home and then underrate them on the road. So to that point, Kyler Murray as a road underdog, 14-4 against the spread, 78%, covering by an average of 8.3 points per game. So I think Arizona can stay close here. Hoping we get Wilson back. Not sure if we will, but that'll help. But you have Connor, you have Murray, Marquise Brown, McBride's playing well, and on the other side, Arizona's defense is not good. Pittsburgh is going to be able to run, and they'll put up their rushing yardage, but I still don't trust Pickett. I still think he can make just as many mistakes or just miss throws when he's not pressured as when he is. So this Cardinal defense that really not going to get too much pressure, but they do have some solid safeties. So they could, Kenny Pickett still could be in some trouble here on some of those throws, even though his defense has been one of the worst in the league. So Pittsburgh could easily win this game like 17-13, and you cover the numbers. So fading Pittsburgh, the luckiest team. Also, this is the top luck ranking matchup of the week. Pittsburgh number 1, Arizona 18th, a gap of 32%. Is the highest of the week, just edging out the 49ers against Philly, which I have a gut feeling we'll be talking about in just a second. So Arizona plus 5.5. And if you can find it, I've seen some 5.5s with a juice, minus 105 instead of minus 110. If you can get anything, 120 or under, I don't mind buying up to the 6. It is a key number. But that's just throwing that out there. That is what I did betting these on Wednesday. So depending on when you're listening to this, that opportunity might be gone. But if it's there, look out for that as well. But Arizona plus 5.5 at Pittsburgh.
I will have more on this game in the total section. So I'll just go to my first pick in the second overall of the week 13 Sunday 6-pack. I am going with the San Francisco 49ers minus 2.5. This is good up to minus 120. Shop around as always, and try to get the best number. But I love this spot. Number one, let's just talk about the spot. Obviously, a playoff revenge here from last year. San Fran has had this game circled. I'm sure that Shanahan has been working on a game. He's probably been working on his script for this game for, I don't know, since that game ended when they had to play with McCaffrey as quarterback. So San Fran has this game circled. But more importantly, just where this game comes in this schedule. Philadelphia got their playoff revenge against Kansas City. Then, and again, they went right down to the wire. Then, on a short week, they play Buffalo in a game that goes to overtime in a complete war from start to finish. They were on the field. Their defense was on the field for 95 plays, and they suffered injuries. Cunningham, who's been pretty good at linebacker position, they have no depth on. He's out. Fletcher Cox got banged up. Davis got banged up. They still don't have a slot. Their corners, Bradbury and Slayer, just not playing well. Maybe that 30 cliff. I don't know. But when you look at this Eagles defense, it has holes over the middle of the field. They can't cover tight ends. The Maddox injury is just so big. That's everywhere where the 49ers can attack. On the other side, 49ers extended rest here. They played on Thursday. Burford came back. They're basically fully healthy. And they had a 3-game losing streak when Debo and Trent Williams, who's still the best left tackle in football, were out. They're 8-0 when both of them play with an average scoring margin of 21 points. They are bludgeoning teams. They are playing unbelievable football. They also have added Chase Young and Lane Johnson might not go. He says he's going to play, but it's going to rain. And what happened last week? It was going to rain. You don't want to put him out there with a groin. So I think he's iffier. Lane Johnson's a warrior, one of the best right tackles in the NFL. But with rain, the Cowboys on deck, I think it's a little iffier than some are saying. And that Eagles offense, which is completely out of rhythm right now. They've capitalized. They've been one of the luckiest teams. I think they're the second luckiest team. I don't know what's in the water in Pennsylvania this year, but they've won 4 straight games trailing at the half, being outgained by 100+ yards. They had no business beating the Bills, no business beating the Cowboys. The Chiefs drop all of those passes. This is a team that's 7-1 in one possession games this year. So Diaz holes. O isn't in rhythm. They're dealing with injuries. They really miss Dallas Goedert. He says he's going to play. He says he's trying to play. I think he's probably more likely for next week against Dallas. But it's a banged up team, and it's got to be exhausted after this run. San Fran comes in much healthier and much more well-rested. And San Francisco, not only is their offense, when their offense is at full strength, I think it's the best in the NFL. Their defense has also made a drastic turnaround. I mentioned that they traded for Chase Young. That was a huge weakness on the other side of Bosa. And what that does is it allows Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave to get one-on-one matchups. And the defense has been so much better. And also, what do? So more pressure helps your secondary. They also benched Isaiah Oliver, who was miserable. 87.5% reception percentage allowed. I think he got 35 receptions on 40 targets, worst of any corner. And that includes Damari Mathis in the NFL. He was in the slot. They moved Lenore to slot where he's better suited. And then they moved Ambry Thomas outside. They put him outside on opposite of Tre'Davious Ward. And he's been amazing. Ward and Thomas are both top 15 per PFF. And I think what they can do here, similar to what they did against Seattle, is I think you take and you kind of follow around Brown. Ward, more physical corner. Thomas, more suited to cover, a shiftier, speedier, more slender receiver in Devontae Smith. And there's Lenore can come up helping the run. The Eagles don't have a third person to throw to right now. It's a major problem in their offense. It's just Jalen Hurts is getting a little healthier, but you can still see he doesn't have the same burst. And that's a big problem for this offense. When he's running and at full speed, the offense is at a different level. So this Eagles offense is just, look, I know they're 10-1, but they have been skating by, getting very fortunate in a number of different areas. I think San Fran has had this game circled. They match up really well on the defensive end. Their offense can specifically take advantage of the weaknesses in this Philly defense. I think San Fran is the spot. I think they're going to come out, the great script, get a lead here. And I think the Philly luck finally runs out. Give me the 49ers.
Yeah, I totally agree. Interesting to hear you say, anything under 3, because I'm curious as to what you think about the 3, normal juice, because I'm assuming that, people are going to listen to this later in the week, and it looks like the Niners probably close at -3. They, I talked about this last week. Something like 90% of their games they've won of their wins have been by a touchdown or more, dating back to the start of last year. So how valuable is that 3? I mean, is the 2.5 versus the 3 to you in this spot?
Well, it is just because of where I make it, like to show enough value in the number. And obviously it's the most important number. It's not at a flat 3 yet. I still like the matchup. I like the spot, but 3 is the most important number. So, and there is still some injury uncertainty, like maybe Goddard, maybe Lane Johnson, both do go. We know Cunningham's going to be out. We know the defense still has some injuries, but yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to still play it if it was a flat 3 and you wanted to play this game, I would still play the 49ers. But for the time being, well, you can get up to minus 120. Get that or buy it to that. Because it's definitely out there. But yeah, 3, I still would like the 49ers. I just based on where I make it and how important the 3 is. That's why I say, I personally wouldn't have been a big bet for me if it was a flat 3.
And I know some people just kind of using this as a teacher moment, because I think it's an interesting situation. So I'm also assuming, because I've heard people say this to me, sometimes they'll hear us, say, oh, minus 2.5, and then the line is at 3. And so they'll take the money line. What are your thoughts on that? Right now, the money line is minus 150. I assume if it goes to a flat 3, it'll be like minus 160-ish. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it depends on the matchup, the game, the total, the actual price of the money line. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. In this particular case, if it was a flat 3 versus the minus 160, I would go with the 3.
Yeah, I think that's smart, because again, San Francisco, when they win, they tend to blow teams out. And that's no disrespect to the Eagles. I mean, obviously NFC champions, but we saw what happened against Dallas. What did that close? Like 3.5, and wasn't even close. So
yeah, and the Eagles have this magic going where, like, if it's really close late, like, they're just finding a way to win.
They got the refs.
Yeah,
the refs are paying them back for that Super Bowl. That is the whole season. Just have it.
Fumbles, calls, drops, you name it. Missed field goals, blocked field goals. So, yeah, in this case, like, if there was, a really low total, and it was a flat 3, and I like the under, and I expect it to be super low scoring, points at a premium, then I might think about the money line in certain circumstances. But for the most part, prefer the 3 over the money line.
All right, for my second pick, the 3rd overall of the Week 13 Sunday 6-pack, going with the Tennessee Titans +1 at home against the Indianapolis Colts. And I like this matchup for Tennessee. And the reason being is you have 2 quarterbacks who are not good. We know Will Levis is a rookie. It's going to be touch and go with him. But Gardner Minshew is tied for 32nd of 38 passers in passer rating from a clean pocket, according to PFF. And, kind of like Kenny Pickett, it's, you just never quite know what you're going to get as far as the throws, the turnovers, and whatnot. And Tennessee, the difference is Tennessee, their run game trending up, Indianapolis run game trending down for this matchup. And the reason being, Grover Stewart still out, 1 more game suspended for Indianapolis for performance enhancing drugs. He was the number 5 graded run defender out of 134 qualified interior linemen at PFF. And the numbers bear it out. Weeks 1 through 6 with Stewart in the lineup, the Colts were 14th in EPA per rush. Week 7 through 12 with Stewart out, 31st in EPA per rush, 31st in success rate against the run as well. So they're bottom 2 run defense without Grover Stewart. It's been bad. And Tennessee, the tackle situation has been a mess, but these guys, Duncan and then Raydons, I think that's how you pronounce it. Dylan Raydons. Yeah. So, he's kind of a utility guy. Both of these guys, not great pass blockers. Obviously, they wouldn't be down the depth chart, but they both graded out well in run blocking. So in this kind of matchup, you just got 2 wild card quarterbacks. I'm getting the better run offense and the better run matchup here with Tennessee, because on the other side, Jonathan Taylor, doubtful, just had surgery on his thumb. He's going to miss the next couple of weeks. So Zach Moss played really well against Tennessee in that first game. But remember, that Jeffrey Simmons got hurt mid-game. I think Tart got hurt in that game too. But I know Jeffrey Simmons did. But Tennessee, that was a blip. Tennessee, number 2 in run defense, DVOA. And this is what they've been the last couple of years. Jeffrey Simmons just anchors that line, and they have some horses to stop the run. So 2 shaky quarterbacks. The better run matchup is with the Titans. Titans are at home, and it's always a small sample when you're talking about home road splits within a given season, but it's been night and day for the Titans at home versus on the road, or in London, I guess, was one of their games. But at home, true home games, because the London game I think counted as a home game, but in their 4 true home games in Nashville, 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread, covering by just under 11 points per game on average, averaging 24.8 points a game, giving up 15, a point differential of just under 10, 345 total yards per game, allowing 288 total yards per game. So a total yardage differential of plus 57. And then when they're on the road, 0-7 straight up, 1-6 against the spread. ATS margin, -8 points on average, averaging just 12 points a game away out of Tennessee, giving up 23.5, -11 point differential, and a yardage differential of over -100, -113. So you're going from plus 57 in yardage at home to -113 on the road. So this team, and it makes sense. I mean, the O-line is not great. So they need kind of those intangibles and that home crowd. But when they do, they're a well-coached team, and they can run the ball. And if they get a lead, it should be good for them. But Vrabel, home dog, 12-7, 63% against the spread, covering by 5.3 points per game. And Vrabel as a home dog or a favorite by less than a field goal, because I realize that this number could jump to Tennessee -1. There's not really much difference between +1 and -1. So don't think that's like a massive jump, but it could go that direction. Mike Vrabel is a home dog or a favorite by less than a field goal, 15-9, 63% against the spread, covering by an average of 3.7 points per game. So I think Tennessee should win this one. Thought they should have won the one in Indianapolis, but that was the one where they planned for Richardson, and then Minshew came in, and then Simmons got hurt, and Moss busted off a bunch of explosives. So a lot of things went wrong. They lost by 1 score. I think they get it done here. Give me the Titans +1 at home against the Colts.
I have no feel on this one, so I'll try to root you in. Although a Colts loss here would really help the Bills, and we talked about this on Happy Hour. If you check that out on YouTube, and if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Hit that like button, appreciate it. But I think this is the time to buy Bills. If you want to take a flyer on the Bills, this is the time. I think they're going to go on a run. They got to climb over some teams, and they have a hard schedule. But a Colts loss here would really help them, because the Colts also then play the Texans. They play the Steelers in a couple weeks. A lot of these teams do get a break because they're playing the Bengals, which is just a killer, because the Bengals have lost Barrow. But I think I might take a flyer on the Bills, but we'll talk about that next week when I don't think the price will change that drastically, but this would help that. By the way, before I get to my second pick, I don't think you mentioned it. Maybe I missed it. Do you like the 49ers?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the 49ers. I think I'm kind of pissed at the number. I missed the number. I think Sunday afternoon it was like what, +1, +2 even. So
yeah, I got even money.
Yeah,
just even money line.
I slept on that, but yeah, I mean, it's not only do I like the 49ers, but really it's about fading this Eagle team that, listen, they've been great. more power, more props to them. But they also have been lucky, and it's just profitable to fade those kind of teams. But where are you going for your second?
All right, for my second pick in the fourth overall, the Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Houston Texans -3.5 at home against the Denver Broncos. We both love Stroud. Tank Dell didn't practice today, but he's going to be good to go. I think they might have their entire receiving core back this week. Noah Brown, I think maybe that timetable-wise, this is usually when he should come back. We'll see.
They haven't had all top four together since week 1, I believe. So it's been
But this is mainly a complete sell of Denver. I was on the Denver bandwagon, leading the bandwagon about the defensive improvements. Get McMillan in the slot. You remove Mathis. You put in Morrow. They got guys like Browning and Jones back healthy. D definitely was not historically bad. The D is still bad. The Denver's won 5 straight, and everyone's saying playoffs. We're all about Russell Wilson and this resurgence. Okay. But first of all, of those 5 games, 3 have come by a combined 5 points. The other 2 were against the Browns, who lost every starter in that game, and then we're down to PJ Walker, and it was a mess. And then they played Mahomes with the flu. In those 5 games, they beat the Chiefs, Packers, Bills, Vikings, and Browns. Those teams went 7 of 16, scoring touchdowns in the red zone, 8 of 15 and 4 on the fourth down. Most importantly, 16 turnovers to only 2 for the Broncos. 5-game winning streak plus 14 turnover margin. 44 of their 117 points during their 5-game winning streak have come directly off of turnovers. That's 38%. Still only averaging 23 points per game. Without the turnovers, they're averaging 14 points per game. They've forced 14 fumbles on the season. They've recovered 12. No other team's recovered more than 9. I mean, and if you look, since the 5-game winning streak started in week 7, Broncos 7th in EPA per play on D. Guess what? EPA very heavily it's heavily skewed by turnovers. If you remove turnovers, 25th. Success rate, 25th. It's literally just been turnover luck for 5 games straight. Meanwhile, over that same stretch, Texans D, 16th in EPA per play. If you remove turnovers, 6th in success rate, 2nd versus the rush, which is huge because that's been the engine of this entire, Broncos offense. They have a good script, and then it's, hey, let's run it and then give Russ easy throws. How about the offenses since week 7, if we remove turnovers? EPA per play, Broncos, 23rd. Texans, 5th. Success rate, Broncos, 26th. Texans, 12th. I mean, this Broncos team is still a bottom 3rd team in the NFL, offense and defense. They've just been getting every bounce possible for 5 games. Peak of the market here. I think we mentioned this game last week. This is the spot to sell Denver if they beat Cleveland. Broncos D, by the way, 11th highest blitz rate, and they get no pressure. 4th lowest pressure rate. Well, Stroud's been elite when he's been kept clean. Arguably the best quarterback in the NFL this year, and he's been good versus the blitz. A little shaky when you can get pressure on him still as a young quarterback without blitzing. Broncos can't do that. So this is just a great matchup for the Texans. Both sides of the ball. Complete sell high at this Denver team. Plus 14 in turnovers in the past 5 games. And they still won 3 by a combined 5 points. I think there's blowout risk here. Love the Texans here. We're laying the 3.5.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's tough to get a feel for the Broncos. I feel like I guess you kind of broke it down. They're just getting so lucky off turnovers. That's it. That's all don't know how. Yeah, it feels like this is very unsustainable, and the bottom should just fall out. It should have already fallen out. But they got a win against the Chiefs. They're on this roll. So yeah, I don't hate it. And this Texan team, I mean, really, I feel like the thing about Houston is they're still leaving meat on the bone. I mean, with the kicker issues, I feel like there's a drive that just ends in a stupid penalty each week. I mean, for as good as Stroud and this Texan offense has been, they should have had more than 19 against Atlanta. They should have had more than 21 against Jacksonville. So good spot for
Houston they have some
to
positive
get
regression
right.
coming.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, it's that the eye test looks better than the end results, and obviously they've surprised a lot of people. But this Texans could be like a legit, just like how Burrow ascended with the Bengals.
Yeah, they could be the sleeper.
Yeah,
I think there's only 7 teams that could win the Super Bowl. The one that could emerge as the sleeper because of the quarterback is the Texans. Yeah. And the only thing that scares me, and hopefully they just go for 4th downs, is so I said this for weeks. I was like, you can't have Matt Amendola as your kicker. I know that their kicker got hurt. They cut him. They re-signed him to the practice squad today. They worked out Brett Maher today. So
God, not Naher.
Yeah.
Naher might be even worse. Oh,
I know. So hopefully that doesn't burn us, because we've been burned by 2 bets on this. Texans last week, Amendola comes up an inch short, and then they don't have a kicker to kick an extra point. But I think there's a chance Texans by 14 plus.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time they blow somebody out. They've been having all these close games, and
the
really
Broncos that will have like a negative, -3 turnover margin.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos lost by 10 to the Jets in Denver, so downside. Okay, my third pick, the 5th overall of the Week 13 Sunday 6-pack. For the first time all season, I said I wasn't going to bet on Frank Reich. He's gone. Carolina plus 5.5 at Tampa Bay. So, number one, I don't think you're going to get a massive boost here from, the change in coaches, because you did have Thomas Brown calling plays before, and it didn't really seem to do anything. But at the same time, we saw this Carolina team, and there are some players. I know they got rid of a lot of people, but there are a bunch of guys that were on this team last year that are still there. And we saw this team kind of perk up from the coaching change last year. I think you could see something like that this year as well. Carolina's defense is starting to come together under Evero, who I think we both respect. Weeks 1 through 7 before through the bye, allowing 31 points a game, 342 yards. They ranked 31st in success rate since the bye, from 31 points allowed to 21, from 342 yards per game allowed to 259, and the success rate 18th. And if you remove turnovers, 16th in success rate and 10th in EPA per play. So they haven't been, just kind of benefiting from turnovers. If anything, the other team have. But I'm just hoping that offensively, you got rid of Reich, who I think the game passed by, and then you got rid of a couple of his assistants. You got rid of the quarterback coach McCown and Deuce Staley, who probably was the reason they kept feeding Miles Sanders when he's averaging like 1.2 yards a carry. It's clear to anyone to see Chuba Hubbard is the better back. But I mean, shouts to Deuce, because I cleared my Chuba under last week by, I think, 1.5 yards, because Miles Sanders kept checking back in the game, even though Chuba was out playing him and running circles around him. But I think, just kind of getting better, better rotation in the backfield. I think with Blackshear active, I think, getting Thielen back involved, he's been quiet. And this is a defense in Tampa Bay that's really been regressing. They got a lot of guys banged up, even if they end up playing, both corners, Davis
the corners
and
are
Dean,
playing so bad.
They're definitely hurt, and they're all in the injury report. So this is one of them. They'll probably play. You also have Lavonte David questionable with a groin, Devin White questionable with a foot. So you have Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Lavonte David, and Devin White. Davis and Dean have ankles. That's 4 of your top defensive players, all with lower leg, with leg injuries. That probably explains part of the reason why this defense has really been struggling. So you're talking about a defense that's struggling, and Baker Mayfield favored by more than a field goal. with Frank Reich out of the picture and, potentially some new wrinkles here. I mean, there's nowhere to go. Nowhere to go but up for this Carolina offense. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you like what could or couldn't happen or, what they've been bad at, what can improve. Everything's been bad. It can only go up. This is the time to buy Carolina. This is the time the Bucs, remember how what we thought of the Bucs coming into the year? They were right there. A lot of people thought they'd be worse than Carolina. This team has lost, 5 of the last 6 games after starting hot. Baker Mayfield's a 5.5-point favorite. He's 13-24, 35% against the spread as a favorite in his career, failing to cover by an average of a field goal per game in those spots. Todd Bowles as a favorite by a field goal or more, 6-13, 32% in his career, failing to cover by just over 4.5 points per game on average. And I talk about this is kind of the time to buy Carolina. Road underdogs with 1 or fewer wins in their 8th through 12th game, 63, 30, and 5. 68% against the spread over the last 2 decades, covering by 3.6 points per game. So I like the spot here for Carolina. It's a fade of the Bucs. Mayfield is a favorite. And this Bucs defense has been playing bad enough that if Carolina is ever going to perk up with some of these old guard out of the building, it might be this game. And I think their defense can do enough to keep them in there. Even if they only score 13, I think they can hold the Bucs to 16 and get the cover. So give me the Panthers for the first time all year, plus 5.5 at Tampa.
Yeah, since week 7, Tampa 29th. Tampa D 29th in EPA per play. They are leaking oil. And yeah, I generally don't think that there can be, historically, if you look, there is a slight bump when a coach is fired that first week. And if there's a reason to believe, if there's like low-hanging fruit, I think there can be some significant changes. And the front office, Bryce Young's obviously been bad. He's small. Can't really see downfield. He just looks overwhelmed. The front office went to Reich and said they need to incorporate more RPOs into his game plan, which suits Bryce Young well. And he's had a lot of success doing that in the past. Reich said, no, it doesn't fit his system. So I assume you're going to see a lot more RPOs. And Reich's a stubborn guy and wouldn't just kept trying to fit Young, say Young is a square peg into Reich's circle, into his hole. That came out weird, but you know what I'm trying to say. And so you need to make some adjustments, man. Help them out. So I think that you'll see a game plan that's more conducive to the skill set and what Bryce Young is comfortable doing. And there's also the element of surprise, right? So you'll have these new wrinkles that Tampa is not ready for. And you didn't even mention, it might not be Baker Mayfield. Could be Trask, who's horrendous. Mayfield hurt his ankle in the game last week, did come back, but couldn't put any weight on it after the game, said it was all adrenaline. And ankles are tricky. He doesn't have adrenaline going. So he's definitely not 100%. So we'll see how that progresses throughout the week, but there's definitely some injury risks that could favor the Panthers as well. So I'm on this also, so I like it. For my third pick in the 6th overall, the Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers plus 6 against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night. Number one, this is a great spot. Packers extended rest here, getting healthier, especially on the defensive end. Should get some guys back. A lot of guys in their secondary are practicing. Chiefs, meanwhile, coming off a division win. Bills on deck, traveling, into the cold, non-conference game, kind of a sleepy spot. Packers in a must win. That win over the Lions, huge, had a lot of momentum You want to really get back in the playoff picture, you got to win this game. They've also had 4 losses by a combined 10 points, been one of the unluckiest teams in the NFL. And Jordan Love is playing his best football of the season. And I think he's a little undervalued in the market. And the Chiefs' offense just doesn't look right. There's some flashes here and there, but man, they go through these long droughts, and it's all on the receivers. Just so many drops and just no rhythm, and they can't figure out who to play. Adjusted EPA per play among all quarterbacks since week 7, which was after the Packers bye, when you've started to see flashes from Love, and his numbers are even better since week 9. But let's take week 7 for a bigger sample size. Adjusted EPA per play among quarterbacks, Love, 9th, Mahomes, 10th. Adjusted completion percentage, the same. Love, 2 more air yards than Mahomes. This Chiefs team, look, their defense is good, but the Packers offensive line can handle their front. And that's a lot of what is driving this Chiefs defensive resurgence. Spagnuolo's great. Their corners are really good, but they're also getting a lot of pressure, getting a lot of sacks. Love's playing very confidently right now. I think they'll be able to run a little bit. I think they'll hit some explosives. And this is when you want to fade Mahomes. Favorite over a field goal. And that offense I don't really trust them to win by a ton of margin right now. Like what I'm seeing from the Packers of late. Give me Green Bay and the 6 points at home in a great spot.
Yeah, Jordan Love is playing a lot better. And it kind of helps. The better he plays, because he's one of those quarterbacks that really struggles when he gets behind in games. I made the mistake of betting on him to throw a pick on Thanksgiving because that was their biggest spread of the year. They hadn't been plus more than 3.5. All 10 of Love's picks this year have come when trailing. So it's he kind of throws it up. He gets and Christian Watson, sometimes he puts the ball in harm's way, but Watson's starting to wake up. Jaden Reed. I mean, those young receivers are really coming into their own. It's a shame Musgrave went down with the injury, but that's given a chance for Tucker Kraft, to another day 2 pick, I believe it was. So yeah, this is a time of year when if the Packers are going to make some noise, this is when you would expect it, because we both talked about it. They had everyone was young. Everyone was first and second year on the skill position. So you expect, some rough patches and some growing pains. Yeah, growing pains. Exactly. So now you're starting to see Jordan Love a lot more efficient, more accurate, and the receivers are helping him out too, making plays on the ball and making plays after the catch. So,
and confidence with a young core like that goes such a long way.
And I think, interestingly enough, I think they have something with Dylan if they just use him more as a receiver. He's not the type of guy you would expect to be a good receiver, but just from watching him play, he looks a lot crisper, quicker, and just more efficient when he's catching the football than when he's running the football. So, I think that's another positive. At least they have some way to use him, because he's averaging he's averaging 9.7 yards of reception this year. It's the 3rd time in 4 years that he's averaging over 9 yards a catch. Running backs usually average around 7.5. Yeah,
he's very crafty in the receiving game.
Yep. So, if you could just avoid just slamming him into a wall, and I know you don't really have many other options, especially if Jones can't go, but the Chiefs, you could do some things with the backs, in space. So I think this Packers offense is starting to come together. Just hope their defense and Joe Barry can hold up here, because don't let Isaiah Pacheco run for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns on you. That's the biggest worry. But 6 points in Lambeau for this Chiefs team that just can't separate, because it's been a struggle. I don't know why they don't play Rashee Rice more than 50-60% of the snaps. Every week I look, he's I think as high as 68% of the routes this year. That needs to change. Maybe it will this week, but that is going.
Yeah, and also they'll have. I think Stokes, Savage, and Alexander should all be back in the secondary this week. DeGuara also practicing, but their secondary is at dealing with a lot of injuries. So they should be
that,
much healthier.
Losing Rasul was not ideal, obviously, but
Yeah.
if Jair is in there, that makes up for a lot. All right, so let's see. What do we got here? Quarterback wise, you got Purdy, Stroud, and Love. Not bad. I got Kyler, Will Levis, and Bryce Young. So I got like the top. I got some like draft picks that really haven't lived up to the hype, and you got like the emerging all-stars. So you definitely got me
the
on
only
quarterbacks.
2 quarterbacks who have been drafted in the past 3 years that have worked out so far.
Right, exactly.
There's been so many bad quarterback draft choices over the last 3 years.
Yeah. When was Tim Boyle drafted? That was like 5 years ago, right? Was he even drafted?
There's no way.
So bad. He was so bad in school.
He 2018. Let's see. Was he drafted? I cannot.
Nah, he wasn't. He wasn't drafted.
Yeah,
No,
undrafted.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was at UConn, couldn't cut it there. 1 touchdown, 14 picks, then went FCS. And then I don't know how, let's see. I don't know how, like, he must have just, I don't know how he made his way.
Clipboard, Aaron Rodgers clipboard. That's literally how.
Yeah, but how did that start? That's what I need to. He needs to write a book.
I mean, the Packers always have they had who was it? Ben Kurt, JT O'Sullivan. I think they had I feel like the Packers always have those guys that like aren't great quarterbacks, but they're great like mentally kind of guys. I'm assuming that's what Broyle brings to the table because it's definitely not any skill. But I digress.
Do you remember the Colts long-term backup for Manning? Can you remember his name?
Oh, wait. Give me what? Curtis Painter. Is that it?
Wait.
Sorgi?
Yep.
Sorgi?
Yep. Jim Sorgi.
Yeah. It was like back in the day there used to be 3 quarterbacks, and I remember it was like Jason Garrett and Wade Wilson were always backing up Troy Aikman. I was always like, who are these guys? Like, just had no idea. Now you generally you see less of that because teams keeping 2 quarterbacks, but yeah, there's some of these quarterbacks that really should not be seeing the field.
Yeah, Painter was his backup later in his Colts career. And then they also signed very late, I think late in his Colts career. Kerry Collins they brought on when he was.
I feel like the Colts had a game or 2 of Josh Freeman in there, mixed in there somewhere too.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we're rambling now.
Yeah, man. Stuck. You have the Niners -2.5, Texans -3.5, Packers +6. I have the Cardinals +5.5, Titans +1, and the Panthers +5.5. That's going to do it for our Week 13 Sunday 6-pack.